Long before the internet made everyone a broadcaster, there was this other way to get your voice out there. It was illegal, it was super ingenious, and it was fiercely independent. I'm talking about pirate radio. And in that world, some pieces of gear became absolute legends. So today, we're going to pull the pin on the story of one of the most famous of them all, a transmitter known simply as the grenade. And this really captures the whole vibe. It was this rebellious, anti-establishment world that pretty much lived and died by its ability to stay hidden and broadcast under the radar. And to pull that off, you absolutely needed the right gear. And a lot of the time, the best gear was something you had to build with your own two hands. Okay, so that brings us right to it. This legendary grenade. What was it? When these pirates were whispering about it, what were they actually talking about? Why was this one piece of hardware so sought after? Well, here it is. This is the grenade. And yeah, I know, to most people, it probably just looks like a messy box of wires. But to the people who knew, oh man, this thing was pure gold. It was a compact, powerful, and kind of mysterious transmitter that was your ticket to getting on the shortwave map. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. What are we actually looking at here? Technically, it's a 10-watt AM transmitter. It's crystal-controlled, locked right onto the 41-meter shortwave band. But look, the tech specs don't even tell half the story. The real magic, what made it a legend, was its clever all-in-one design and the mystery of who actually made it. Right, so a piece of gear this legendary doesn't just build itself. There's gotta be a mastermind, right? A creator. And in this story, the guy behind it is every bit as mysterious as the grenade itself. And this is what's so cool about the whole DIY spirit of pirate radio. The grenade wasn't churned out by some big corporation. Nope. It was the brainchild of a single person, a pirate operator who called himself Radio Animal. He alone was the architect behind this whole thing. See, Radio Animal wasn't just some guy in a workshop. He was in the game. He ran his own station, WKND, and he built and sold these grenades to other pirates. And this is where it gets really interesting, he deliberately scratched off part numbers and hid component values so nobody could copy his design. And then, when he was done making them, he just disappeared. Poof, gone. So every great invention has an origin story, right? The grenade didn't just appear fully formed. It started as something much, much simpler. Let's trace it back. The whole idea started in the late 80s, and it was inspired by this little Morse code kit. Fast forward to early '93, and the very first grenade is built down in Texas, put together with whatever parts could be bought or salvaged. And then, bam, May 1993, it hits the air for its first successful broadcast. And just look at the leap in ambition here. On one side, you've got the Two-fer kit that inspired it all, a tiny 1-watt board that could only do Morse code. Just beeps, no voice, nothing. And then you look at the grenade concept, 10 times the power, full AM voice, with everything, including the audio part, built into one box. I mean, it's like going from a simple pager to a full-blown radio station. Now, this was way more than just putting a kit together. This was about solving some serious engineering puzzles. It's all about the clever hacks and the resourceful, scrappy problem-solving that made the grenade a reality. So Radio Animal had this checklist in his head. Goal number 1, no more messy wires and separate boxes. It had to be a single reliable unit. Goal number 2, use high-level modulation, just like the big professional AM stations, for a really punchy signal. 3, and this was the tough one, build a 10-watt audio section that could run off a regular 12-volt car battery. And finally, goal number 4, cram all of that into one small, portable, easy-to-hide box. So out of all that, what was the biggest headache? It was finding that perfect 12-volt audio amplifier. I mean, he looked everywhere, circuits from old CB radios, intercoms, even bullhorns, but nothing was powerful enough or clean enough. He needed a solid 10 watts of audio, and he needed it from a simple 12-volt supply. And the solution? Oh, this is my favorite part of the story. The answer wasn't in some fancy electronics catalog. It was just sitting there, hiding in plain sight, inside a busted old car stereo he had in a junk pile. I mean, this is just brilliant, scrappy engineering. He literally traced out the circuit on the car stereo's board to figure out how the main amplifier chip worked. Then he carefully pulled the chip off, redrew the schematic, and rebuilt the whole circuit on a brand new board. After a few tweaks, the heart of that old car stereo became the powerful voice of the grenade. Amazing. And you can literally see the evolution here. On the left, that's an early prototype. Look at that wild point-to-point wiring. We call that dead bug style. It works, but it's a mess. Then on the right, you see the final product. So much cleaner, all tucked away neatly inside its case, ready to go on the air. So what do you do when you finally get this thing working? Well, the very first time it went on air, it had exactly the kind of chaotic, rebellious energy you'd hope for. The guys were on there joking about the FCC chasing them all over, pretending they were broadcasting from the middle of the ghetto, which, of course, they weren't. They called the station the voice of the unknown ghetto blaster. How great is that? And the first song they played, Ice Cube. They were just sending it out into the night with absolutely no idea if anyone was even listening. It was just about the pure act of doing it. But the story doesn't stop there. It doesn't end with that first broadcast. And it doesn't even really end with Radio Animal. The grenade left this lasting echo, a legacy that rippled through the pirate radio world for years. And this is where it really becomes the stuff of legend. After making this incredible device and selling just a few of them, the creator, Radio Animal, just vanished. And him disappearing like that, it only made the grenades that were out there even more valuable, more mysterious, and more desirable. Because he kept the design so secret, it basically became a challenge for the whole community. Other operators were dying to figure out its secrets. So, what did they do? They started trying to reverse engineer it to build their own. And that sparked a whole wave of clones from other big-name pirate stations, which kept the spirit of the grenade's design alive and well on the air. So in the end, the grenade was so much more than just a transmitter. It really became an icon. It was this physical thing that stood for the entire DIY, anti-establishment spirit of pirate radio. It was a tool of rebellion that you could literally build on your own workbench. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. Today, we live in a world of streaming and podcasts, where basically anyone can get a global platform with just a laptop. So what does the spirit of pirate radio, the legacy of the grenade, what does it mean now? What's today's version of hacking a car stereo just to get your voice out there? It's something to think about, for sure.